Canadian law and legal system, a structured foundation of which holds the nation together. In the criminal justice system, sexually based offenses are considered especially heinous. In Toronto, the Women's Legal Education and Action Fund was created. Here is the story. On April 17, 1985, the Women's Legal Education and Action Fund was founded to ensure that the Canadian courts protected the equality provisions in Section 15 and 28 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The founding mothers of LEAF have fought in many courts and achieved many victories that have advanced the Canadian law in a way that creates substantive equality for females in Canada. On Friday, April 6, 2018, LEAF filed its factum at the Supreme Court of Canada in the case of R.V. Jarvis, where the issue stands of whether or not a male high school teacher who had used a camera pen to secretly film his female students' cleavage committed the criminal offense of voyeurism in Section 162 of the Criminal Code. The facts remain that voyeurism is that everyone commits an offense who observes, including by mechanical or electronic means, or makes a visual recording of a person who is in circumstances that give rise to a reasonable expectation of privacy if a. The person is in a place in which a person can reasonably be expected to be nude, to expose his or her genital organs or anal region or her breasts, or to be engaged in explicit sexual activity. B. The person is nude, is exposing his or her genital organs or anal region or her breasts, or is engaging in explicit sexual activity, and the observation or recording is done for the purpose of observing or recording a person in such a state or engaged in such an activity, or C. The observation or recording is done for sexual purpose. Or in other words, for Mr. Jarvis to be found guilty, he must have recorded his students in circumstances in which they had a reasonable expectation of privacy. The Ontario Court of Appeal, using a location-based assessment of privacy, had come to the conclusion that the students had no reasonable expectation of privacy in the school, based upon the fact that it is a public school, and the court found that Mr. Jarvis's secret filming of his female students' breasts was not a criminal offense. Whereas the Crown appeal raised the issue of whether the students had a reasonable expectation of privacy in their circumstances, so they would be protected from being filmed for a sexual purpose without their knowledge or consent while attending public school. The purpose of LEAF's involvement on the case is to create a sense of justice for females all across the world, or more specifically, within the public school system. The organization had urged the court to have an equity lens to the interpretation of voyeurism provision, which takes into account gendered nature of this crime. They hope to change the standards so that the privacy expectations in both private and public places provides meaningful protection for women's sexual integrity. Or in other words, voyeurism disproportionately affects women. It defines privacy in a narrow, location-based term, and the Court of Appeal's decision effectively denies women protection from voyeurism intrusions in any location deemed public. This dramatically narrows the scope of protection provided by Section 162 and makes women and girls more vulnerable to the harm this provision protects against. We can connect this back to history. Historically speaking, respectable women were expected to remain in the home, away from public view. They were expected to cover up, not show skin. We can see this in everyday life in school dress codes where females are targeted rather than men. It's an ongoing phenomenon that has to be broken. In the legal system, women aren't catered to, and they should be, especially when more than half the time rape cases, sexual assault cases are targeted towards females because we are often seen as the weaker sex. The location-based conception of privacy reinforces these harmful gender stereotypes. It presents the woman with this: accept the risk that you will be the subject of technology-facilitated sexual violence, or stay home. Think about that. The court's approach has a victim-blaming mentality. It places the importance on women as the primary targets of voyeurism, and to ward off intrusions to their sexual integrity by dressing or behaving in a quote-unquote respectful way. We can connect this to various different situations where in a rape case the victim was blamed, whether they were wearing a skirt, drinking at a bar, or dancing in a quote-unquote provocative way, and were asking for it. This reinforces dangerous stereotypes that women are responsible for guarding their sexual integrity, and the fact of male aggression, and that women who dress provocatively or act in a certain way are asking for it. Not only is it a huge phenomenon and problem in law, but it happens in public schools, in dress codes. I once saw a quote that said high school dress codes for females are stricter than American gun laws. Why is it that every high school dress code specifies women and their breasts and their butts and their stomachs, whereas males aren't accounted for? Alongside Leaf, we must all force the courts to adopt a broad and contextual definition of privacy, free from discrimination, sexism, and stereotypes. Based off of the court's decision and outcome, they standardize the expectation of privacy based off location. We must change that so that the law thinks of people not as objects, but as human beings. Women should have the expectation that their sexuality deserves privacy no matter where they are, no matter what they're wearing, or no matter what they're doing. Personally, I believe that the Canadian legal system and justice system is a beautiful foundation that keeps our nation safe and happy. We're known as a happy country, always apologizing for our neighbors. We're known as the salad bowl. We're known as diverse. We're known as equal. But why is it that if we're so equal, the voyeurism specifications of the law show us that we're sexist? They throw the blame on the victims. The expectation of privacy is different for everyone, and I believe that the sexuality of women should be protected at all costs, no matter what. Thank you for listening to my podcast about voyeurism and the Lean Foundation. I hope I shed some light on the topic, and hopefully you learned something.